Creepypastas based on games have been around since the early days of Creepypasta. However, it wasn't long until game developers started returning the favour. Many stories have inspired the creation of interesting games, and here's our top 10 pick of the best. Pokemon Lost Silver is a classic video game creepypasta. The story is about a struggling college student anticipating the upcoming release of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. After finally saving up enough money, he ordered the game online. While waiting for the game's delivery, our protagonist grows nostalgic and decides he wants to play a classic Pokemon game. So, he sets out to GameStop and purchases a used copy of Pokemon Silver. What he got instead was a twisted version of his once beloved Pokemon game. The title screen was warped, rooms turned a blood red colour, and he was forced to experience the actual deaths of his beloved Pokemon, including his Pikachu. Now, thanks to a board on 4chan, you can play this game. In 2010, a group of anonymous 4chan users created the short playable game after reading the Creepypasta. The game essentially recreates the haunting experience the narrator explained in his story. But this isn't the only game based on this creepypasta. There's another Lost Silver fan game that grants a bit more freedom in its outcomes. The original story was based off the early age Nintendo bugs that used to plague Pokemon. You can play this game online completely free if you dare. Just remember, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. This is just a taste of what lies in store for you from the creepypasta itself. I knew that sadistic freak must have done something. I walked around my room to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go down the stairs to see what was awaiting down there. Note that I said walked, as while the background was moving, Gold was not moving his transparent limbs at all while doing so. Just floating like those ghosts you see in Diamond and Pearl. You might want to think twice before playing this game.
The Midnight Game is a video game based off the popular creepypasta that shares its name. The story is allegedly based off of a pagan ritual. It highly recommends that you do not try this game. Seriously. I would not recommend it. But, for the curious, these are the basics of what you need to do. Step 1. Write your full name, first, middle, and last, on a piece of paper. Put at least 1 drop of blood on the paper. Allow it to soak into the paper. Step 2. Turn off all of the lights in the place you are doing this. Go to a wooden door and place the paper with your name on it in front of the door. Now, take out a candle and light it. Place it on top of the paper. Step 3. Knock on the door 22 times. The hour must be midnight upon the final knock. Then, open the door, blow out the candle, and close the door. You have just allowed the Midnight Man to enter your house. Step 4. Immediately relight your candle. The video game was created by Unicorn Studios on August 31st, 2014. The video game recreates every step of the real Midnight Game until you summon the dreaded Midnight Man. Like many other entries to this list, the Midnight Game was made popular mostly thanks to Let's Players. The game is for thrill seekers only, as there's a scare at almost every corner. If you would like a challenging game, one that can be frustrating at times but also fun and exciting, and if you're okay with discovering the unknown darknesses in your virtual house, then this might be exactly what you're looking for. Be warned, however, playing the Midnight Game in real life could have terrible consequences.
Luna Game is a popular My Little Pony creepypasta originally posted back in 2010. It generated a lot of traction as the show it was based on, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, grew in popularity. 1 year later, in 2011, 5 games were created inspired by the Luna creepypasta. At first, many MLP fans downloaded without knowing what they were in for. They assumed it would be a game similar in tone to the children's show. What transpired completely shook the community. You play as the character Luna in the first game. It plays like a typical platformer, and then after some time, an image of the fan favorite Pinkie Pie shows up covered in blood. After that, a multitude of MLP songs play in an ominous remix. You cannot exit out of the game manually. The game eventually, after quite some time, shuts down on its own. The second game starts out oddly similar to the first. You yet again play as Luna, this time in a side-scroller themed game. You keep walking until you notice cracks in the ground. The cracks get bigger and bigger until suddenly, out of nowhere, another horrid image of Pinkie Pie is shown, with a blaring white sound in the background. The game then completely shifts its color pattern as disturbing music gouges at your ears. It's the music that drives most players mad. You keep going forward until you eventually fall into a hole in the ground, and the end card, Game Over, appears. Game 3 has you once again playing as Luna. This time, you're in a forest setting, and you have the option of running either left or right. The farther you run, the darker the game gets, and the more the background music slows and distorts. The trees grow dark and painted with blood, all while the unrelenting music plays. You will eventually run into a hole in the ground, similar to the second game. While near the hole, you hear the horrifying distorted voice of Fluttershy scream, "Come out." You then fall into the seemingly bottomless pit. There's another disturbing cry from Fluttershy, this time saying, "Love me." Soon, another disturbing pony image appears on screen. Finally, Luna stops falling, but something about her has changed. Her legs have been severed. After a few moments, the game will do an extreme close-up of a disfigured face, with a blood-curdling shriek blaring in the background. And then it ends. The fourth game, like the others, has you playing as Luna, though this time things are different. Better. Cheery music plays while you stand upon a beautiful grass cliff, but then you fall off the cliff at an outlandish speed until you hit solid earth, and text appears that reads, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" The game itself closes, and after some time, reopens. More text appears reading, "It didn't have to turn out like this." On August 22nd, 2012, the final official Luna game was released. Some claims this is the most terrifying of them all. But if you really want to know, you'll have to play it for yourself. Just don't say, "I didn't warn you."
Sonic.exe was originally a Sonic-themed creepypasta written by JC the Hyena in 2011. JC submitted the story to the popular Creepypasta wiki, inspired by an image of Sonic the Hedgehog with blood dripping from his eyes. The creepypasta became an instant classic, generating countless discussions, fan art, videos, and even a game. There's a lot of controversy surrounding the story, as people argue whether it's worthy of all the hype, but one thing is for sure, Sonic.exe won't be going away anytime soon, especially now that a game has been created based off the story. The original creepypasta follows our protagonist as he receives a package in the mail from a close friend who he hasn't seen in quite some time. The message reads, "Tom, I can't take it anymore. I had to get rid of this thing somehow before it was too late, and I was hoping you'd do it for me. I can't do it. He's after me. And if you don't destroy this CD, he'll come after you too. He's too fast for me. Please, Tom, destroy this godforsaken disc before he comes after you too. It's too late for me. Destroy the disc, and you'll destroy him. But do it quick, otherwise he'll catch you. Don't even play the game. It's just what he wants. Just destroy it. Please." Signed, Kyle. Despite his friend's warning, Tom can't resist and starts up the game. Right from the get-go, it was dramatically different from any Sonic game. We follow Tom as he plays his way through the horror. The story takes many twists and turns, ending in an odd and unexpected way. The popularity of the story steadily grew until it was skyrocketed by the development of a real Sonic.exe game by Mist Crimson in 2012. The game follows the same aesthetic as described in the original Sonic.exe story, offering a plethora of haunting imagery and a soundtrack that is nothing short of unforgettable. It's still available for free download online, but be warned, if a gruesome experience is not for you, then you may want to stay clear of this one.
Bedtime is an outstanding creepypasta written by popular horror author Michael Whitehouse. The author originally posted the story on No Sleep back in 2012, but it truly gained traction when it was posted on the popular website Creepypasta.com. The story surrounds an 8-year-old boy and the terrors that follow him into his sleep. There are dozens of videos online about the Bedtime story. Since its popularity is so vast, it was almost inevitable that someone would adapt the idea into a game. It Moves is a game created by Snow Owl back in 2014. The popularity of the game grew exponentially after the famous Let's Player, Markiplier, played it on his YouTube channel. The video gained well over 1 million views, drawing much attention to this indie horror game. Although it's a horror RPG, it doesn't follow the familiar horror cliches of jump scares at every corner. In fact, the game is very innovative, challenging, and overall an extremely unique experience. Don't believe me? Take it from Michael Whitehouse himself. It's a very atmospheric and well-made RPG. It just uses my story as a jumping off point. Much of the imagination in the game is down to the developer, Snow Owl. The game has you solve a multitude of puzzles while running into many sinister villains along the way. If you're a fan of the creepypasta Bedtime and want to see a game developer's take on the story, then make some time to check it out. You won't be disappointed.
The Mario franchise is one of the most well-known and longest-lasting in video game history. It's no surprise many Mario-themed creepypastas have been written, though some are not exactly what might be called great. However, one truly stands out from the rest. The story is called Mario, and is a must-read for any creepypasta fan. It was originally written by the username Adam, and posted on the Creepypasta wiki. It begins with an author's note that reads, "This is a true story, and sums up what was going through my mind as I was playing this. And I had no idea I was about to be tricked the way that I was when I played this, and I can say it is by far the creepiest hack I've ever played. If you are on IRC, you would have heard me talking about it as well, but anyways, it's late at night, and I don't have a lot of time, and I need to get to sleep, so this is all I have time for." The game is a hacked version of a Mario game, and is anything but the typical cheery playthrough one expects from a Nintendo title. Random binary code appears on screen, it blares sounds similar to a clown car, and Mario attacks Dinosaur Land. One of the more disturbing texts that appears reads, "Victim number 1. Eyeballs were unable to be found. The victim was found lying on her carpet. Cause of death are unknown. Hand marks with unidentifiable prints were found all over the corpse." If that doesn't deter you, then maybe you're just the type of person this game was made for. The hacked game is still available online, and with a bit of search, you're bound to find it. But be warned, many players leave the experience feeling somehow changed from how they were before they began.
The Pokemon Black creepypasta is a classic video game pasta and a total fan favourite. The protagonist begins with how he purchased a game called Pokemon Black at a local flea market. Note that this story was written before the Nintendo DS Pokemon Black came out. At first, it seemingly plays like any other Pokemon game. But then, you go to select your starter and are presented with the option of a Pokemon called Ghost. Ghost only has one attack, Curse. Pokemon won't attack Ghost. The game will say they're too scared. The story only gets more disturbing from there. Of course, after hearing that, it's no shock that a fan created a real-life version of the game called Pokemon Cursed Black. The game was in early development in late 2010 and took a whopping 5 years to complete. It recreates the gameplay described in the story almost perfectly. The creator got the disturbing Pokemon Ghost part down, along with his iconic move, Curse. Whether you're a Pokemon fan or just a Creepypasta fan, you'll definitely want to give this game a shot for a truly eerie experience.
Slender the 8 Pages is an extremely popular first-person survival horror game based off of the original Slender Man creepypasta and folklore. Developed by Parsec Productions, the game was released on June 26, 2012 for Windows and OS X. To gain a true understanding of the game, you must first know some backstory on Slender Man himself. Here is an excerpt from the Slender Man creepypasta explaining the iconic look of the creature. The Slender Man is a being, male in appearance, who looks like a man with extremely long, slender arms and legs. He also appears to have 4 to 8 long, black tendrils that protrude from his back, though different photographs and enthusiasts disagree on this fact, and therefore it is theorized that he can contract these tendrils at will. He is described as wearing a black suit, strikingly similar to the visage of the notorious Men in Black, and, as the name suggests, appears very thin and able to stretch his limbs and torso to inhuman lengths in order to induce fear and ensnare his prey. Once his arms are outstretched, his victims are put into something of a hypnotized state, where they are utterly helpless to stop themselves from walking into them. After hearing that, you might be put off by the idea of the Slender Man. Unlike most, Parsec Productions was not. Instead, a creative chord was struck. They were soon developing what would become an internet phenomenon known as Slender, the 8 Pages. The game begins in an extremely dark, vast forest. Already something seems wrong, but you don't know what. Armed with only a dim flashlight, you wander through the deep darkness. The objective is to collect 8 pages, the ravings of a lunatic, that are scattered across the map. Collect all 8, and you win the game. That doesn't seem so bad now, does it? Except for one big thing. Slender Man. As you go deeper into the forest, you are not alone. He is with you every step of the way. Sometimes you catch a quick glimpse of him, only for him to vanish before your eyes. But don't stare too long. He doesn't like it when people stare, and he'll find a way to make you stop. For good. The more pages you find, the closer the Slender Man gets. And when he arrives, static blurs your vision. There is the crashing sound of a piano and a long, piercing wail. He can come out of any corner at any given time. Will you see him before he sees you? The game generated quite a buzz, which was perfect for YouTubers playing the game, such as PewDiePie and Markiplier. Videos amassed tens of millions of views, so it surprised no one that the game was given a sequel. Slender the Arrival, developed by Blue Isle Studios. Slender the Arrival is a direct sequel to Slender the 8 Pages. The game is more plot-driven than the previous installment, but most of the mechanics remain the same. The updated graphics added a whole new level of discomfort for players. Though the game was by no means a flop, it didn't generate the same amount of attention as its predecessor. If a survival horror video game based off of a popular creepypasta sounds interesting, you should definitely give these games a look.
The Rake. The Rake is a popular creepypasta that many fans of the genre probably know about. For the newcomers, the story starts off with what we are to presume is a journalist investigating the claims of a horrific creature known as the Rake. This monster stalks its human prey, typically appearing to them while they sleep. The victims of the creature rapidly descend into madness after coming into contact with the Rake, ultimately taking their own lives. Here is a short excerpt from the story. As I prepare to take my life, I feel it necessary to assuage any guilt or pain I have introduced through this act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him. And once I awoke and saw his form. Once again I awoke and heard his voice. and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I cannot ever wake. Goodbye. The Rake's reason for hunting its victims is unknown, which may be why this story is such a fan favorite, since it leaves a lot to the imagination of the reader. Though this is considered an older creepypasta, the hype has not died down. In fact, it actually increased since the release of the Rake video game. The game was originally released on October 31st of 2012. It's an object-seeking game much like Slender the 8 Pages. It begins with you wielding a shotgun as you run through the forest, setting up cameras in hopes of catching the Rake. You're on a heart-pounding journey to survive this disturbing night. The game has caught a second win since the release of a multiplayer feature, and like other entries on this list, Let's Play YouTubers have considerably helped its popularity. If you're a big fan of the Rake creepypasta, this game is a must-play.
The uncle who works for Nintendo is unlike any other entry on this list, as it's not actually based off one specific creepypasta. Instead, it's based off the whole video game pasta genre. It plays as a text-based horror game, taking popular trends from creepypasta video games as its main plot. If you read or listen to any haunted game pasta, then you might think you have an idea of how this game will go down. However, this game is far from boring or predictable. In fact, it's one of the most entertaining entries on this list. It was created by Michael Lutz and is set in the 1990s. It centers around a kid, the player, having a sleepover with their best friend who claims their uncle works for Nintendo. Though some say the game takes a bit to get through, most say once it gets going, it's utterly fantastic. It's a deep trip of 90s horror nostalgia mixed with classic creepypasta and uses the interactivity of video games to its advantage. If something like that sparks your interest, then you're in luck, because the game is currently free to play online.